Hi,
Hi,
JT.
Josh.
Ryan, how
Hi.
are you both?
Good. This is
Doing
our
good.
first interview for today.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome. Like,
it's
Yeah.
great to
so
see you.
excited.
Fresh.
Yeah,
Yeah. Everything's gonna sound original. I mean, no way. Sorry. Anyway, terrible.
Organic,
Organic.
amazing. Well, glad to be friends.
spontaneous.
This film is phenomenal. And I wanted to start, in a digital world, always refreshing to see a film shot on 35 millimeters. So for you both as director and DP, what made that right for this particular story?
I mean,
Yeah.
you're the DP. Go ahead, Giovanni.
Well, yeah, I think that's actually the film and celluloid is really what brought JT and I together. We met through someone who was working at Kodak at the time, Steve Bellamy, a mutual friend, and this is just the first thing that we bonded on. And then 5 years later, JT sent me the first draft, I think,
Hmm.
for this, and within 15 minutes of reading it, I called him and I said that, I just said that I have to be involved in this and what can I do? And so, yeah.
Yeah. It was. I mean, it's one of those things where, for me, it's never been a choice. Shooting film, not shooting film, and when I met Vonnie, it was we both bonded over that, and especially this story felt like what we were looking for, the feelings we wanted to evoke, the films we were watching that inspired us to make this were all from an era that only used celluloid. So it felt like there was no other way.
Amazing. And I know, Giovanni, you've worked with some all-time great filmmakers over the course of your career as an actor. So how would you say those experiences really prepared you to come onto this movie as a DP?
Yeah, I mean, I started out as a child actor, and I was really all my life kind of more or less grew up on movie sets, and the camera and the camera crew it was always this fascination for me. Um, and at a certain point, I think it was probably 20 or 25 years ago, which ages me, but there it is. I started asking questions about that and really had this fascination, this curiosity. And I think it was yeah, it's just something that I'd been working on sort of in the background. Uh, and this is sort of me more or less coming out with this movie
Hmm.
as a cinematographer.
He's quite good at the job.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I definitely agree with that. And this story is told in a non-linear way. And for me, that just made it even more engrossing. And so for you, JT, what was the biggest challenge as a storyteller of structuring the story in that way and in a way that's not going to confuse audiences, but really hook them in a way I think the film does so amazingly?
Well, that's great to hear that it doesn't confuse audiences. We were, I never thought it would because I didn't set out to write a non-linear story. I was just inspired to write this story, and the only way it could be told was that way. Chapter 3 came to me first, and I didn't know what the rest of the story was. And then it took, months went by of going on hikes, taking showers, like falling asleep, and that the moment before falling asleep, and I would take notes, and this thing came to me in that order, and so it had to be told in that order. And if it gets put back in linear order, which we tried at one point as a experiment, because we were told to, it seems conventional, so that's the way it had to be told. And I was just hoping that everybody outside of my circle would see the effectiveness of it in that order, and it seems to be working, thankfully. But I can't imagine it any other way.
Amazing. And, color, I feel, is a really big part of this movie. And I like how when there's violence, it always means something. So when we see blood, I feel like it's done in a way that it really pops off the screen and it almost drives home the horror of what we're seeing in those moments. So for you both, what was it like collaborating on those violence scenes and making sure they came across in that way?
I mean, I think we talked about not wanting this to be an exploitation flick necessarily, which I like those movies, but we wanted the violence to be brutal, explosive, but also at the same time, I mean,
To
some people
mean
don't
something, yeah.
understated and to
Yeah.
be grounded, right? And
Yeah.
some people won't feel like it's under everything's relative, but to me it is. We were restrained here, but I feel like when the violence happens, it should be very effective, because there are quiet moments and there are moments without that. and we wanted, the colors in those scenes and others were a huge part of this movie. And we talked about color really evoking emotion in different ways in different scenes.
Yeah, we had had the opportunity to work together for a good 4 or 5 months, talking about that and putting together an extensive document that was sort of our Bible. It was just at a certain point, it was just really important to get through the end of it and then go back and sort of, and so a lot of the ideas as far as color and the color palette and the shot design and what we were doing really came out of that. And then, of course, you get to a movie like this or of this nature, and it all goes out the window. But it's still something that you can use. And I think that ultimately, that was sort of like the grounding factor for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we brought in Priscilla Elliott, production designer.
Yeah, it was incredible.
We talked to her about color control, and Bonnie and I were always we were into primary colors because so many films, modern films, were leaning into tertiary colors and cyan. And so, reds and blues and black were always a big deal. And when we met with Priscilla, I talked to her a lot about really sticking to that. And she taught me to stay disciplined in that area. And we made sure that every single scene, we used the colors that were meant to be in that scene to evoke certain emotions.
Oh, incredible. And again, I'm not going to get into any spoilers in this interview because I think it's really important for people to go in fresh, but there's a phenomenal sequence in the film, a one-shot sequence with the character running from a motel to another building. What was it like for you both to put that one together? Because again, I know we see a lot of one-shots in these big movies, but it's just such a cool sequence. I thought how it came together.
Wow. Well, the line producer and a certain crew member really didn't want us to do that scene. But do you have to do it in one take?
I know.
But we knew
there were all these discussions. It's going to be a golf cart. It's going to be somebody who's running on a skateboard at one point or something like that, and
jumping off of a balcony.
But that really that specific scene is sort of emblematic for us about perseverance and really just sort of, trying to be diplomatic, but reassert the vision and really, sort of being loyal to that, no matter what, no matter how much somebody tries to convince you otherwise.
Yeah, those long takes, when they make sense, are really, really important to me. And we have, 2 of those sort of tracking shots in this movie that where we don't want to get out of the scene. We don't want the audience to get out of the scene, and we want the characters to be able to live in it, the actors to be able to live in it. And if it was up to me, we wouldn't have shot any coverage. And I think with this scene, we shot no coverage, no stitching coverage, at least because we wanted to keep it.
Which is what stitching coverage, a lot of producers or filmmakers get worried when you do that, because there's really no escape hatch. Like that's the movie for that duration if you don't have anything else. And I think it's sort of a testament to JT and his willingness to be radical, or the inclination to be radical, and to take chances like that and to actually succeed at doing it, which I think he did.
Well, the fact that he was able to realize it in that scene, once I saw that he'd captured that, I knew we didn't need any stitching coverage. So the execution is everything. And the fact that we both decided to go for it was exhilarating. It was a challenging day, but it was one of the best memories I have from the film.
Yeah. Oh, and mind you, that was an interesting thing. Just, I mean, I don't know if this is too much information or whatever, but we had another location set, and something happened with that location and it fell out. So we essentially had 18 hours on a Sunday to prep that location and figure all of that stuff out with other people who but again, it was like, it happened, and we kind of lifted our heads up from the front and went, oh, okay, there's something.
Yeah, the jumping off the balcony was decided like the night before. When I pointed the balcony, some of the studio folks were like, "What?" Are you
Yeah.
joking?
Yeah, no, but
But we
and
did
we,
it.
you know, that's also, you know, something that says, you know, for the stunt crew that we had, because, you know, usually that takes a lot of prep, but we did it, we were safe about it, responsible, of course,
Yeah.
and had somebody and they pulled it together. It was really like, it talks to
Kent.
film. Yeah, Kent, right?
Kent Luttrell.
You know, the nature of filmmaking sometimes, especially, you know, with budgets like this or films of this nature, it really is a miracle, you know.
Wow, well, incredible. Well, congratulations to you both on the film. This is a legit movie of the year candidate
Mm.
for me. So such a pleasure to be the
Oh,
first to speak to
wow.
you today,
That
and
means a
amazing.
lot to us. Thank you. It's been a long road. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time. Great to speak to you both.
All right. You
You
too.
too.